everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Scripps College Pre-Health Information Session. My name is Anna Marie Wood. I'm a Senior Assistant Director of Admission here at Scripps, and I'm also a graduate from the class of 2013. Today, I'm joined by Susie Fang, Pre-Health Professions Advisor at the Keck Science Center at Scripps College. The purpose of this session is for you to learn more about pre-health opportunities at Scripps. As some of you may know, pre-health, or let's say maybe pre-med, is not a major at Scripps, but rather a track that students follow. And students who are pre-health will work with Susie on preparing for and understanding how to choose a health profession. So this session will help you learn more about pre-health opportunities at Scripps and just what that track looks like. And then also just to clarify, this is not a session about the Keck Science Center broadly. So if you have questions about Keck Science broadly, or if you want to know questions specifically about the majors at Keck, let's say like biochemistry or biology or physics, I encourage you to go to those individual specific sessions for those departments. So Susie is here to answer questions about the pre-health profession advising track specifically. So I think that's it for now, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Susie.
Okay, thank you, Anna Marie. So let me share my screen. Okay, let's see. We can all see that?
Perfect.
Yeah, good. Okay. So hi, everyone. I'm Susie. I'm the Pre-Health Professions Advisor at Keck. So Keck Science Department is the science department that's shared by Claremont, McKenna, Pitzer, and Scripps. So I'm going to do a brief introduction about myself. So I went to UC Riverside. I have a BA in psychology. I'm currently doing a master's program at UC Laverne, or University of Laverne. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, Pasadena area to be specific, so I've been here my whole life. And my previous job has included being a recruiter, admissions for a medical school and graduate health school. So I advised prospective students, I was on the admissions committee, I did interviews. One of the great things about that was there were 9 colleges and I think 24 different programs. So I'm not just well versed in pre-med, I can help students with nursing, physician assistant, podiatry, pharmacy, any and all of the health professions. I've been at Keck for 2 years and I've been advising as a whole in pre-health for about over 5 years. Really quickly, I have photos, I know, of my cats, my 2 cats and my dog. The reason I have that is at Keck, we are very dog friendly. So I do have a dog that I bring in, Rogue. He's pictured right at the bottom.
They are adorable.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. One of the best perks of being at Keck. So pre-health advising, what do I offer? So like Anna Marie said, pre-health is a track, so I am supplemental to the major advisor. Students will typically come on campus and meet with a major advisor that is assigned to them before picking their major. They will help the student with general education requirements, eventually major requirements, and anything you need to officially graduate. I am on top of that and will add courses as we see fit depending on the track you're taking. My job is to prepare you to be a competitive applicant. About 500 total pre-health students for all 3 schools, Claremont, McKenna, Pitzer, and Scripps. Approximately 45% are from Scripps College, so almost half are from Scripps, which is great. 80% are pre-med, and slowly I'm turning over the other ones to be 20% vet, dental, nursing, PA, physical therapy, pharmacy, optometry, occupational therapy, and there's many more. So if it's not listed here, we probably still have a few students who are interested. So continuing, I also offer one-on-one advising. So that's kind of a great perk of being at Keck or even Scripps. It is me. I do one-on-one advising. I'm able to meet with any student for curriculum planning, application process, creating a timeline, when to take your standardized exam, when to apply, personal statement review. We go through clinical research and volunteer programs and opportunities. We have a few pre-health clubs and organizations on campus, and some that I wanted to highlight. We have an EMT club, we have an EMS service club service that we just rolled out this semester. Unfortunately, because we had to leave, it didn't actually get to go into fruition. So hopefully next year, but it's great because there are about, I believe, 5 to 6 students who will be working with campus safety. They will be basically the first responders to be there on campus to help with any medical emergencies prior to the ambulance coming. So they are trained, and I think it's a great thing. So it'll count as clinical experience that we have on our campus. We also have a pre-health club, MedLife, pre-vet club, and pre-dental. I also offer personal support. We have pre-health workshops and events scheduled throughout the year. And then pre-health student ambassadors who are mentors and students that work out of my office to really help any freshmen and sophomore with questions they have about Keck or bring pre-health at the Claremont colleges. I also have a PreHealth Portal, which is a website that I created to be kind of a one-stop shop for any events, announcements, information, and then a weekly newsletter that I send every week. I went through this a bit earlier, but these are the different health tracks that our students will go through. I believe I spoke about all of those. And then some sample workshops and events that I have planned throughout the year. At the beginning, I have the freshmen, sophomores who will go to the pre-health basics, how to gain pre-health experience in the Claremont area or even back home. In your junior and senior year, you'll come to the applicant information session, gap year, how to use the application services when applying, deciding where to apply, mock interview prep, and then special programs. We had a suture clinic this past semester, a career trek to Rancho Los Amigos Rehabilitation Center where we met with occupational therapists, physical therapists, and a neurologist. So it was really fun. We have physician talks, alumni talks. I'll have programs come out and give information sessions. So medical schools, vet schools, dental schools, and then student panels. So now we're going to get to the fun part, which are the statistics. Approximately 25 to 60 students will apply per year to a graduate health program, and that's through me, or as far as I can see, through the application portal. 25% have already graduated, so they are technically will take up to a 2-year gap year. 25% are juniors, so they are applying to go straight into a graduate health school after graduating. 50% are seniors, so those will have a 1-year gap year. Our national or our acceptance rate, it is about 70 to 80% depending on the year, and that is with the last 5 years. We are above average. The average for US MD schools is 40%, DO schools, Doctor of Osteopathic is 30, vet schools 10 to 15, and dental schools 6 to 10. Our average GPA is a 3.7 of those who apply. And advising is open to all current and alumni. So even if you do graduate, you can still contact me. I'm still able to help you with interview prep, to go through your application, to make a timeline for you for the year. So you can contact me at any time. I do want to note though, with the 70 to 80% acceptance rate, simply coming to Scripps will not give you a 70 to 80% acceptance or chance of getting into a graduate health school. Of course, there are a lot of different factors that go into this: academics, research, leadership, community service. But the nice thing is that because Scripps and the Claremont colleges are smaller schools, I am able to give you more personalized attention and kind of care in going through your application. So that's one of the things. We do have a lot of resources to help increase your chances, and that's really just being able to advise you and to give you different opportunities, which I will go into next. Oh, one last thing, sorry. The acceptance rate is also based on competitive candidates. So those are students, for example, for medical school with around a 3.7 GPA and a 512 MCAT score. Okay, so how to be a competitive candidate. We have academics that we need: research, clinical opportunities, community service, leadership. So with our academics, we have Dean of Students, Writing Center, individual and group tutoring, office hours. We do have quite a bit of resources at Scripps that is able to assist with that. For research, a lot of students will ask when they can get started with research at our campus. Typically, students will start probably around sophomore year, I want to say. Some will do freshman year, but at Keck, it's really just asking professors if you can join their labs, finding researchers who are in labs that are interesting to you. So it's not incredibly difficult, but you just have to find openings. But if you're interested, you can definitely do it. Students will also go to KGI, so Keck Graduate Institute, just down the street to do some research, or even the surrounding colleges. A lot of students will also go back home, so they'll do summer research internships back at their home state or home colleges, and that's also an opportunity that can be done. For clinical opportunities, we have Pomona Valley Medical Hospital, which is in Pomona, just about 10 minutes away from our campus. Costa Colina, which is the rehabilitation, VNA Hospice, nursing homes, City of Hope, and our EMS service. Now, with these clinical opportunities, I do want to note, as an advisor, I'm here to advise and assist in recommending clinical opportunities to students. I unfortunately do not have any lists or, you know, you can't sign up and just say, okay, we'll have you go to Pomona Valley. You do have to apply, you do have to research. I do encourage students to take the initiative to find other opportunities. But these are very common clinical opportunities that are done in our area with our students. Community service, we have a lot of community service in our area. I do encourage all of my pre-health students to participate in community service, because I really want them to truly show the graduate health programs that you're not just doing this because it looks good on paper. You're doing it because you actually want to help underserved communities or people in general. So we do have Uncommon Good, which is a local nonprofit in our area that works with children in the local Pomona Valley area. We have Tutors for a Cause, which is a club on campus that tutors the children of the Pitzer dining hall and facilities staff on the weekends. We have Music Mania, which is a club that teaches kids from the surrounding area how to sing, and at the end there is a performance that they put on. And then there's MedLife, which is a club that does a lot of local volunteering with the homeless community in Pomona, and then Circle K. And then leadership, we have teaching assistant positions, tutors, and clubs and organizations. I do send out a weekly newsletter that has a list of events, resources, and opportunities that are sent to me almost every week. So a lot of the times there are opportunities to partake in any of these 4 or 5 things to make you a competitive candidate, but I leave it up to the student to take the initiative to sign up and look for those types of things. So the Keck committee letter, we are one of the very few schools in California that does a committee letter. So what a committee letter is it's authored by the pre-health committee or myself, the pre-health advisor, and offers an evaluation and advocacy on your behalf, the student, highlighting background, accomplishments, challenges, and your overall preparation for pursuing a career in medicine or dental. It's only accepted by medical and dental programs, so the other programs do not accept a committee letter. This is very common at schools on the East Coast. It's basically like a really nice cover letter on top of a bunch of letters of recommendations the student will get from science professors, non-science, physicians, dentists, and researchers. And I will go through it, and then I will write the cover letter for the students. There is a faculty committee and myself who vote on the type of recommendation we will give a student. So whether that be highly recommended, strongly recommend, or do not recommend. For this 2019 application cycle, which is almost over, we had 22 applicants go through the committee letter. 14 were from Scripps. All of them applied to most likely the MD, and dental programs, and 92% had at least one interview, which is great. So where do they get accepted? So here's a list of all the schools that our students have gotten accepted to in the last 5 years. There could be a few missing, so if you don't see it, it just might be that it didn't fit on my slide. But these are the most common. So you can see there are lots of UCs. OHSU is really big for our students, especially if they want to go back to the Pacific Northwest. UW, we have Stanford, we have some DO schools on here, we have some MD, PhD programs. Our students really go everywhere in the country. If you're interested in the other health professions, for Dental, we've had students recently go to UCLA, UOP, vet school. We had one recently this past year get into UC Davis, and another is going to University of London. Physical therapy, nursing. This year we had a student get into the Johns Hopkins program, which is fantastic. We have our PA, optometry, and pharmacy. And that is the end of my presentation. Here is my contact information. Unfortunately, the phone number will no longer work because I'm at home now. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me in my email, and I will be happy to answer anything that you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susie. That was great. That was a lot of information.
Oh, yes. Lots and lots.
So we got a couple of questions that came in, and I know that you already talked about just acceptance rates and kind of the context of those and what those are. We did get a couple more questions about that. I'll read one of those questions aloud to you. If you feel like you've already elaborated on it, if you could just do so again, and anything you might want to add about those types of questions.
Okay.
So one of the questions is, what % of pre-med students are accepted into medical school, specifically medical school? And then there's another question about just like acceptance into specific medical school programs, like X university. So I don't know if any elaboration you want to do on those types of questions.
Yes. So let's see. I can also see it here. So the acceptance admission rate is 70 to 80%. So it's the same. That is across the board. Depending on the year, and the reason I say that is because some years we'll have 5 students apply, some years we'll have 30 students apply. It just kind of depends on what's going on that year. And kind of a disclaimer about acceptance rate. So how all advisors or any school kind of figures that out. There is an application service. So for MDs, let's say it's AMCAS, applicants have to give the pre-health advisor or the advisor the ability to see their application. So once you're given the ability to see their application, that's how we kind of go through that. But there could be students who don't allow us to see their application. There could be students that we've never met before that applied. So you kind of truthfully have to filter through these types of things. And so the way that I find it is either through the committee letter. So if you go through the committee letter process, I'm able to kind of keep track of you. Or if students have allowed me to see that they have applied. So I use both. Because there will be people who have already graduated that I may not stay in contact with who have applied but graduated from Scripps. And so that's kind of how we kind of figure that out. So that's why it's a range of that 70 to 80 because it varies. Now, how many students get accepted to Stanford? That is a great question. I believe in the past 5 years, we've had possibly around 2 to 5. I have to look that up, but about 2 to 5.
Like 2 to 5 students who have gone
on? 2 to 5 students, yes. Is there a potential to work overseas like internships? Now, for overseas, and I'm going to use pre-med as an example, and I apologize if that's not what you're talking about, but let's say you're a pre-med student and you want to go work overseas for like a summer internship. Those are great. However, you still want to do things in the US because especially if you're applying to US medical school and you're going to practice in the US, they want to make sure that you know the rules, regulations, what it's like. So what I say with overseas is the overseas experience is kind of like, the sprinkles on top of a sundae. You still want to get that US experience and the schooling and everything else. And if you can go overseas, that's great. If not, it's fine. It's just kind of like a little bit of extra. But medical schools and most other professional schools want to see US experience.
And Susie, on that note, we got another question at the bottom about how feasible is it to study abroad at Scripps if you are, let's say, pre-med or part on the pre-health track?
Oh,
about studying abroad?
Good question. So it depends. You can if you're willing to take a gap year. So if you are not looking to take a gap year, which means you want to go directly into a pre-med or professional school, you cannot study abroad because you have to apply at the end of junior year and take your standardized test and take all these courses. If you want to study abroad, then you can, as long as you're going to take at least one gap year, which means you would apply at the end of senior year. So yes, it is if you are okay with spreading it out. I do encourage students to take gap years because it really does help for your application. You get those extra few years of grades, experience, you get work experience when they're asking questions about, you know, what you've done for work or what you've done in certain situations. It could be really hard if you've really just been on campus or in school the entire time and haven't had kind of outside work experience to give as examples. So I do recommend, if you want to study abroad, do it. We can spread it out. It's not a problem. It's not going to hurt your application. It's really beneficial for you to kind of do it as you see fit, and so that you're ready when you're applying.
Great. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, you know, Susie, could you talk about, since we, you know, you mentioned that this pre-health is a track. And so this student asked, like, do you advise students to pursue a science-related major, for example, like biology? And I know you don't do like major advising. Could you just talk about maybe like what are pre-health students majoring in? What does that look like?
Yes, most will do a science. And so for majors, when students are choosing majors, you know, I hear a lot of, I heard it'd be really great if I majored in something that wasn't science related because all these schools will think that's really cool and, you know, I'll get in. What I say with that is choose what you will do well in. So even if you were a French major, let's say, but you did really bad in French, but you still did really great in the sciences, that's going to hurt you because you're going to be like, well, why did you major in that? So do what you love. But if you love French and you can really speak about it and say, oh my gosh, this is really what I wanted to major in. I knew I wanted to be a physician when I grew up, but I wanted to make sure at a liberal arts college I was able to take advantage of this. But you could also see that I did well in science. Then that's great. So with that, choose what will work for you and what you will enjoy. Don't be afraid to pick bio or chemistry or one of the other ones you deem to be too common because you're afraid you're not going to stand out. What a lot of these schools are looking for in the beginning is your GPA and your standardized test score, so let's say your MCAT score. They're not going to look at your major first. They might look at it down the road. So what I need you guys to focus on is really what major is going to allow you to do well. Students will pick science because it's easier to fulfill science requirements and pre-med requirements or pre-vet dental requirements all at the same time. So you don't have to kind of have to configure that as much.
That is really good advice.
Thanks.
I see another question that I know is pretty common, which is, can any of the pre-med requirements be fulfilled by taking summer courses near my home? So maybe outside of Keck?
Yes. So right now at this moment with everything going on, yes. Usually kind of, sort of. Typically, a lot of schools don't like to see online courses, and it depends on which program. So we're going to use the most picky, which will be pre-med. They typically don't like online courses. They want everything in person. They want it at a four-year school, no community college. So right now, most likely, yes. You can take courses in the summer, except for a few science courses that I wouldn't recommend. But most of the time you can, as long as it's a four-year school and it is in person, hopefully. Right now, yes, you can do online. You will have to get it approved if you're hoping to transfer it over to, say, Scripps and to use it as your major or to have on your transcripts. But yeah, students do. Students typically will do like physics over the summer or one of the non-science like English or psychology.
Okay. There's also a question about double majoring while still being on the pre-med track. Is that too much? Do you see students who have two majors plus are pre-med or on pre-health?
I do. There's not that many. There's a few. And again, I say the same thing. Do it because you want to and love it, not because you want to look better on an application. It can be a lot of work. I've had students who have done, let's say, a biology major and a Spanish minor. Languages are very common, but I would say, gosh, I don't really know the percentage off the top of my head, but it's possible. But again, if it's going to be too much on your plate or anything like that, then I usually recommend against it. But if you want to and you love it, then yeah.
That's good. Well, this is a good question. Susie, I wonder, do students ever follow multiple health tracks? Like if someone wants to be prepared for like pre-vet and pre-med, do you ever see that where a student could be applying to both, preparing for both?
Yes, you can. At some point though, you do have to kind of pick a track because all the professions, all the prereqs are all slightly different. Typically it's the 1 semester courses like microbiome, biochemistry, and sometimes you could even have a really nice surprise where you may not have to take physics or only 1 semester of bio or 1 semester of chemistry. So it's always nice to kind of get those prerequisites earlier just so you know. But yeah, there's some who do 2 or want to keep their options open, but usually by junior or end of sophomore year, you want to kind of figure it out so that you're not taking classes you don't need.
And I see a question here about the post-bac program. And so that's something that I'm happy to clarify for students. And feel free to jump in if you want. Scripps does have a post-bac program for students who want to go into medical school, but it is after, it's like a post-college, it's post-Scripps. So it's actually a program that students, whether they've graduated from Scripps or students from anywhere else in the country, after they've gotten their bachelor's degree and want to go into medical school, then that's a separate program. I don't know if there's anything else you'd clarify with that, Susie.
Yeah. Did you mention, oh, it's for those who do not have a science background?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't say that, you just said it now, so that's good.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so it's called a career changer post-bac. So there's career changers and academic enhancers. The one at Scripps is a career changer. So those students will take courses with our students, but they have no science background typically. And then at KGI has the academic enhancing one.
But it's not, post-bac is not, even though it's a Scripps program, it's not an option for Scripps undergrads.
Oh, no, you wouldn't need it. Not until after you graduate. Yeah, you're correct.
Well, I haven't gotten this question in a while, but I feel like this is popular for a while. Can you talk about med school linkage programs?
Sure. We currently do not have any linkage programs at the moment.
Can you describe what a linkage program is?
Yeah. Sorry.
Fresh my brain.
I'm like, no, Anna Marie, we have nothing. No. Okay. So linkage programs typically would be something with let's say a medical school, nursing school, vet school. What it is you would apply in your sophomore year at the end, and it would be like a contextual contract. So depending on what you did the next 2 years, they would accept you, but you would have to upkeep a certain GPA or MCAT score or experience. We did used to have a few linkage programs, but those were terminated not based on anything we did or the schools did, but really the original med schools just stopped doing it with a lot of the undergraduate schools. Yeah.
And I also see a question here, and this is a common one we get because, we're a small liberal arts college. And this question is about how Scripps prepares students to be successful in a wide range of medical professions. Could you talk about just when students are coming from a small liberal arts college, how that prepares them for medical professions and just how students are successful?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm trying to... So coming from a small liberal arts, so in comparison with us to say, let's say a big state school, how we prepare you is that, it's very similar to what I mentioned earlier. I'm able to give you that one-on-one experience. I'm able to meet with you and kind of touch base every semester. So, Anna Marie, what are you doing this summer? Are you getting your research in? Are you getting your leadership in? Are you shadowing a physician? So I'm able to kind of stay on top of you, really.
That's something I definitely needed.
Right? And make sure that you have everything, which is the perk of being a small campus. At a bigger school, I went to UC Riverside, which was great. But there's so many students. There's so much going on that, you can kind of get lost. And so the nice thing about being at our school is that I can see you and you could talk to your professors. You can get letters of rec. You're not going to go up to a professor and they're not going to say, I don't know who you are, because they will, because the class sizes are so small. So even though we are a liberal arts college, I don't really see, you know, anything that's harder or anything. It's just that you actually learn other things, and you're able to learn about the humanities, and get more personalized attention, and even like the writing center, the career services, everything. It's just more accessible. And so I think that we do prepare students very well, and even the caliber of our courses. Now, in terms of kind of like specialties and things like that, it's more general. I'm just trying to get you into a school first, and then I let them kind of guide you through specialties of what you want to do after that. But my advising is pretty general for the most part.
And Susie, you had mentioned like some, not pre-med, but like some of the other tracks that students may do. And so I know we have a lot of questions about pre-nursing. Can you just talk about what
yes.
that's like?
Yeah, so pre-nursing, that is actually, so when I first started at Keck, my goal was to kind of get people to know that there's other things to do besides pre-med, because I think there's so many other great professions that people just don't know about. And so pre-nursing is actually one of the ones that's, I'm getting so many more students. And so I'm really excited about that. But we have about, I know this doesn't sound like a lot, but I have at least 20 pre-nursing students right now. And that's coming from a time where there really weren't that many. And so pre-nursing is pretty great. Right now, this cycle, we have the one applying, and she's going to Johns Hopkins. But other than her, I mean, gosh, I have so many freshmen, sophomore, and juniors now that are looking to go into pre-nursing. So there really is a lot. And I don't even know if I answered your question. What was the original question?
What is pre-nursing like?
Oh yeah, okay. So then there's the courses. We do have a nutrition course that we created for our pre-nursing students. There are a few classes that we don't have at Keck or any of the Claremont colleges. And that's human anatomy and I believe public speaking. It just so happens that we just don't have it, but you can take those at a community college or even online for most of the nursing schools. But for everything else, Keck can provide for pre-nursing students and kind of guide you. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I see a question here that I'm happy to start the answer with is, are there students that play varsity sports on the pre-health track? So generally speaking, and Susie, feel free to, chime in, but Scripps students are multi-interested and multi-talented, and they love doing a lot of different things. If someone is pre-health at Scripps, chances are they are interested in something else that is like non-science related. I just think our students have a lot of diverse interests. So I don't know specifically if there is a pre-health student who plays varsity sports, but there's definitely pre-health students who are maybe interested in like the Baking for Justice Club, or like they're interested in like French, like you said. Like it's very common for Scripps students to have multiple interests.
Yes, and I do have students who are on the sports team. It can be a bit challenging because to fit in courses, sports, and the pre-health track, a lot of them will do experiences in the summer or they'll take a gap year. But it can be a lot, and it can be very impressive if they can keep up with all of that. So we do have some.
We have another linkage program question, but specifically for nursing schools or nurse practitioners. So I don't know if there's any different answer for that.
No, unfortunately, we do not. We have kind of a relationship, I guess you want to say, with Johns Hopkins, but what that really is they know our courses, they know kind of what school we are. So we do have kind of a close relationship, but it isn't a linkage or anything official like that.
I have a friend from my time at Scripps who is in that program now.
Oh,
graduated. I'm not sure, but she did.
Yeah. We get quite a few.
Yeah. There's a question here about, do you offer a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science in bio and biochemistry? And I'm happy to answer that.
Go ahead.
Only offers the Bachelor of Arts degree, which I know can seem, we are a liberal arts college. And so even sciences are very popular at Scripps. So even though we don't have the Bachelor of Science degree, students our science is popular at Scripps. We produce a lot of scientists who go on to graduate school and of course, health tracks like we're talking about now.
I see a question about, is it easy for students to gain scribe EMT opportunities on campus or at local hospitals? So scribing will typically have to be done after you graduate because they will typically want you to commit 1 year. So scribing is very difficult The other one was EMT services or EMT experience. Same thing. It can be difficult to do part-time unless you're doing it on campus with their EMS service, or some students can do it, I believe, when they're back home. But it depends on if you have a car on campus. It can be a bit difficult to get clinical experience if you don't have a car, but there are, I think, like the cars you can rent on campus. And you don't have to do it on campus. You can wait till you go home in the summer. You can wait until later, but for those types of clinical experiences, they are available around campus, but they do require some sort of mode of transportation and an application.
I think this question is kind of a follow-up to what we've already talked about with just the liberal arts. Does the Bachelor of Arts impede medical school requirements? So, which I think the answer is no, and that there's a lot of benefits to a small liberal arts college. So there are students in medical school who have a Bachelor of Arts, not a Bachelor of Science.
Oh yeah, that doesn't even matter. Don't even worry about that. That doesn't even matter. They're not even going to pay attention, I'm sure. They're really looking at the caliber of work you're doing, your GPA, your scores, everything else. That's like a tiny little thing. Don't worry about that.
Susie, do you think you could elaborate on, because I know I've gotten that question a lot before of like, well, but I have to have a Bachelor of Science because, you know, it's if you want to go into medical school, like that's just, I think that's just what like the people think at first. So can you elaborate on first on why it doesn't matter?
Oh, yes. So what the schools want is the prerequisite courses, which are all sciences, right? Biochem, physics, OChem, etc. As long as you can fit that on top of your, you know, humanities major, then that's fine. They really aren't going to, you know, dock you points because you're not a science major or you didn't go to a really big school known for their sciences. You know, the Claremont colleges and even at Keck, our caliber of students is so great that they know that you're going to do well. I mean, if you can have above a 3.6, 3.7 at our school, that's amazing and that's wonderful. You know, they know how hard you've worked. So it really isn't, it's not going to hurt you at all. I haven't seen, you know, anything like that before of having to be at a liberal arts school or not majoring in a science. I mean, if your goal is to go to med school or even a graduate health school, we have so many resources that can help you that shouldn't be, I guess, the deciding factor. Yes, you can go to other schools that have you know, bigger departments and everything, and those are great as well, but it kind of depends on what you need. Are you able to kind of do things on your own? Are you able to find these resources at bigger schools that could have more opportunities, or would you prefer to kind of have the smaller types of things? It just kind of depends on, I guess, what you would thrive in and what kind of environment. But being at a liberal arts, I haven't seen any of our students, you know, not get in because of that at all.
Yeah.
So no.
Thank you. I've seen a couple of questions now about just the gap year experience. So this question is, what does a gap year look like for a pre-med student before they go to medical school?
Okay, yes. So I tell students all the time for gap year, you will be doing something. You will be working, you will have a research job, you will do something. We start looking January before you graduate. I send out an email and I meet with people. You need to start looking for a job or something now. You cannot sit there and do nothing. Your parents aren't gonna like that. Medical schools aren't gonna like that. But most of the students will find a research opportunity job, or they will be a scribe. They will get an EMT job. Some will study for the MCAT and do community service on top of finding a job to do. So you will be doing something, hopefully health related, but you will. So that's typically what you'll be doing.
And I think you had already said this earlier, but just like how many students, or maybe the percentage of students who choose to do a gap year?
About 75%.
So that seems to be the norm.
Yes, it is. It is the norm. It's, yeah. And the average for a lot of schools, the average age of acceptance or getting in is about 24, 25. So it's very common nationwide for it to be later, to apply later.
That is good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Trying to think of what we haven't answered yet.
Let's see.
This one that says, do most students on the pre-med / pre-vet / pre-dental track major specifically in biology? I think we've touched on that already, which is definitely students on these tracks major in the sciences, including biology, but that's not a requirement. I don't know if there's anything you want to elaborate.
Biology is fairly common, but so is chemistry. Human biology is actually very common right now because it integrates social sciences. But not, you know, you can pick whichever one you'd like. But yeah, it is fairly common, but that's for any school.
And I don't even know if we have data on this question, but this is interesting. How does the average MCAT score from Scripps compare to the national average?
Oh, yes. So the national average, I believe the last time I checked, oh gosh, is a 5. It's between a 509 and 511. They just updated it and I apologize. Ours is right at the national average for that.
Okay.
Yeah, so our Scripps is at the national average. And that's as a whole. For those who apply, yeah, it's the same thing. It's about a 510, 511.
I see a question here about where will this webinar be posted later. I'll go ahead and type in the URL where you could find this webinar later since we are recording it. And then another question that we just got in is, do students feel well prepared for medical school? Do they succeed once in medical school? I have some anecdotes from friends I know who have gone through that process, but I don't know if you want to share anything, Susie.
Oh, sure. I hope I prepare them for medical school. That is my job. I am very, I guess you can say, strict on professionalism, on meeting deadlines, on being a well-rounded student. I try to integrate as much life lessons and teachings I can to my pre-health students as much as possible. So I hope so. They seem to do pretty well. I haven't had any drop out yet or heard of any students that have dropped out. I'm also pretty direct with them on what it's like to go to med school. I invite students that are medical students to come speak. So I think Keck as a whole prepares students with faculty and the staff. I think we do a pretty good job. What do you think, Anna Marie? What have you heard?
Well, I have my first year roommate was PreNursing, and she went to I forget what school in Washington. But yeah, I mean, she would just talk about like not just in the sciences and being prepared for that, but just like going through. She was an ethnomusicology major, so she was on the music program at Scripps, and just like having that sense of like critical thinking and writing and just like all these other aspects of her education at Scripps just helped her in ways I don't think she realized she would need, like in when she got to nursing school. And she's still involved in both those things today. And I think that's why I just love that like students at Scripps who are interested in the sciences and also the health professions also just love just like a well-rounded education and being involved in various things. But specifically about being prepared for medical school. I mean, I know it's tough, and I hear those things from peers I know who are in there. But Scripps is, Scripps is it's a good academic challenge. It's a challenging academic place, and so outside of just the sciences, being prepared for graduate school is something that I hear common from Scripps graduates. There's another one that I had here about research. So can research over the summer be funded, and does it matter if it is done out of state? I know the answer to like research broadly for Scripps. I don't know if you wanted to ask and say anything specifically about health.
Research can be funded, I believe, right, through Scripps.
We have a variety of fellowships and research grants. There's a session on Thursday actually about that if students want to attend.
Keck also has funding for summer research, I believe, if you're going to be doing it at Keck during the summer. And then it can be done out of state. Most of our students actually do because they want to go home for the summer. So depending on wherever you're at, I encourage them to look at schools and research institutions near their area. So yes, it can definitely be done out of state.
We have another question here about just how does the acceptance rate to medical schools from Scripps compare with the other colleges? I'm not sure if they are referring to the other Claremont colleges. And of course, you know, with the Keck Science Center, we're a part with Claremont McKenna and Pitzer College. So I don't know if you want to expand on that answer.
Oh, are they, okay. Like,
I don't know if it means Pomona and Pitzer or Pomona and Mudd, or if the question is referring to just like other colleges.
Yes. So with Pitzer and CMC, they're all about the same, 70 to 80. Harvey Mudd, I don't know what their percentage is because they have just like a small handful of pre-meds. So I'm not quite sure. Pomona, theirs is about the same. Theirs is about 85%, I believe, is what they post. So it's all fairly similar. Now, in terms of like nationwide, we are above the national average for that in terms of acceptance.
Which I believe you said the national average is 40, right?
Mm-hmm. For USMD schools, it's 40%.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are above the national average.
And Susie, can you clarify an MD program versus a DO program? I know I've gotten questions about that before.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so MD and DO, there's 153 MD schools in the country and about 40 DO schools, Doctor of Osteopathic. To me, they're the same for the most part. They both give you a medical license. You can practice in really almost any specialty. DO students will learn osteopathic manipulative medicine, which is diagnosing and treating with their hands. So it's kind of like an extra thing in their back pocket that they're able to learn. But really, to me, they're the same. It just kind of depends on preference in terms of what students want to apply to. I think students should apply to both and give themselves kind of a big umbrella when they're applying, but it truly depends on the student. So DO, when I'm going through all this stuff and it's pre-med, it usually will only count USMD, but sometimes I do count DO students. But we do have about at least 25 to 40% of students who go to DO schools.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we have another question near the bottom about if students have gone to a specific medical school in Oregon. And I don't know if you see that question.
Oh, OHSU. Your chances, if you're competitive and we kind of go through that process, are fairly high. OHSU is actually one of our top 10 schools that our students go to. So we do have a lot of students from Oregon and the Pacific Northwest who would like to go back. So I don't unfortunately have like a percentage rate, but it's pretty good. I want to say it's pretty good that you can get, it's in our top 10. So we do have quite a bit of students who go there.
Oh, I don't know if we address this, but what is the average number of medical school students apply to?
I suggest the national average is about 16 to 17. I say about 15 to 20, depending. I do have students who apply to 30 or 40. It depends on your financial situation at that point and how many you want to apply to, but typically about 15 to 20 is what students will, or what I will tell students to apply to. For the other health professions, it could be about 5 to 10.
And Susie, what's the difference between a PA and a practitioner?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that.
Oh, I don't know.
So the difference between a PA and a nurse practitioner. A physician assistant works under a physician. It is a 2-year program, a master's of science and a master's in physician assistant. It's about 2 years, and with that program, it is currently incredibly competitive. It's almost as competitive as medical school at this point, and you do need at least 2,000 hours of hands-on clinical experience. Nurse practitioner is what you will do. It's either a certificate, license, or it could be like a doctor of nurse practitioner. That typically will happen after you graduate, let's say from Scripps. You'll do a Master of Science Nursing entry program to get your RN license and your master's program. And then you'll do, let's say, an NP certificate. You can specialize. So some students will specialize, let's say, in family practice, emergency room, midwifery. Nurse practitioners can, in some states, write prescriptions. some can, depending on your state, run your own clinic. You still will be under a physician technically. So it just kind of depends on what you want to do. Nurse practitioner, you know, doing that, you'll have to go through the RN portion of it. So you will have to do a lot of bedside and take care of a lot of different things. So I guess with that, I mean, they are slightly similar, but not really. There's too much for me to really go through at this point. You might have to like Google a little, but it kind of depends on what you're looking for. And that's really what I would sit down and talk to you about if you came into my office and said, I'm choosing between these two. You know, one has less schooling, but a lot of clinical work prior. One's underneath a physician the entire time. One, depending on your state, you can write prescriptions and you can do a whole bunch of different things. So it really kind of depends on what you're looking for.
We're out of time now, but Susie, I know that you put in your email address, I think, in your PowerPoint, if
Yeah.
or what ways for students to reach out to you, if it's like a website or something. If you want to include that in the chat, and then students and attendees, if you have anything else you want to add, feel free to follow up with us afterwards. And we also have other sessions happening this week, some other science sessions, and I know a lot of you asked about research. I would recommend coming. I forget what time it's at, but there's a session that we have this Thursday afternoon about research opportunities at Scripps. So let us know if you have any other questions. And thank you again to Susie. This is a lot of great information. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. Nice virtually meeting all of you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.